will, or if you can, and if not, stand with your heart. We'll have an invocation by Board Member Coley and a pledge to the American flag by Board Member Wilkerson, and the one who wrote the Texas Pledge will lead us in the Texas Pledge.
Bow with me, please. Heavenly Father, we consider it a privilege to acknowledge your presence in our lives, and that we use you as our guide. We see you as our compass for our lives in everything that we do, especially in dealing with students and their lives for the future. Father, we want to be an example in everyday life to others who may be observing us. We also want to thank you for the opportunity to impact lives at this campus and know that you are guiding us in every step of the way. We thank you for every person, family represented in this meeting, all of our students and all of our staff that are not here. Be with us all, God, so that we make as few mistakes as possible. We love you, and most importantly, you love us. These blessings we ask and receive in your Son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me in honoring our nation's flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please follow me in honoring the Texas flag. Honor the
Texas
Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to each
Texas,
Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Yeah. Remind you, the meeting is being recorded and the public can access this meeting on a YouTube site. Is there anyone in the room that would like to speak to the board? Opportunity to speak, please limit your speaking to 3 minutes, but you're welcome to approach the dais now. Seeing none, hearing none, it's time for the Chancellor's report.
I have nothing to report.
So that was quick. He's on the downhill side now.
Already returned.
Yeah,
Ms. Starkey,
make it easy.
you have something about mental health student support.
I thought I had a few minutes, but you threw me in the report. So, all right. Welcome to members of the board. I'm Julie Starkey. If you don't know me, I'm the Dean for Student Success and Persistence. And I was asked to do a presentation briefly about the mental health support that we provide to students here at CTC. So I'm excited to be able to do that. I don't think you guys would have asked me to make this presentation if you yourself had not heard about all the mental health issues that students are facing. It's in the news every day. It's in meetings you go to. It's in conferences that you go to. So it's out there. And I just put a link, one that was just out in March. Not that I expect you to go to that, but again, it talks about mental health is one of the main reasons why our students are withdrawing from institutions and dropping out in new institutions. And so it is definitely a roadblock to them achieving their educational goals. These are the top 5 issues that students report. I'm sure you're not surprised by those when you see those up there: depression, anxiety, suicidal ideation, substance misuse, and stress. And as I had mentioned, this is a huge topic of at presentations and meetings that I go to. Texas Pathways, big one. I'm constantly going to meetings about the mental health and what supports we're putting in place for our students. So this is a huge issue, and it's specifically a big issue for my area, and I'm going to explain that to you here in just a second. So who's the area here at CTC that manages our mental health? And that's the Student Employee Assistance Program, the Substance Abuse Resource Center. We affectionately call it SEEP. We are very fortunate. We have a very experienced staff that manages that area. Dr. Mahone Lewis, long-time director of that program. She has a PhD and she's a licensed professional counselor, so very trained, and her expertise is on helping students. We have a secondary counselor who also is master's level in LPC, so has a lot of experience working with students. This area specifically does individual and group counseling. They'll do walk-in appointments, they'll do face-to-face, they'll do virtual. And it's important that you know that they do counseling worldwide. It's not limited to here in Killeen and just the local students. They'll support students anywhere. Really, the only group of students that we can't support, at least in individual counseling, is our dual credit students, because those students are directed back to their home counselors. CEAP does resource support, awareness programming. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, and support to faculty and staff, because what you're seeing is we have a lot of issues that play themselves out in the classroom, and our faculty and staff are having to deal with those issues and deal with those students. And so they do a lot of work helping faculty and staff work through those issues. This is a link to their website. You don't have to go to it. On the front page of our website, if you'll just scroll all the way down to the bottom, it'll say mental health resources, and when you hit that, it'll go to their website. And at some point in your free time, I encourage you to check it out, because it does have a wealth of information you should check out. A couple of the things I want to point out about this area is, number one, they joined SSP, my area, in April this past year, thanks to Mr. Ganopoulos. He moved them. They were in risk management, and so now they're part of SSP. And it is such a nice collaboration now. My whole area is about areas that provide support and direct resource support to students, and having them now part of that so that we can combine efforts and initiatives has really been amazing already, even just since April. We have new student orientation coming up here in a couple of weeks, right after we get past open house. They've already jumped in. They're taking the lead and leading some of those sessions and being involved. And we're so excited about that, because with mental health work, it's very important that those counselors are out there present, meeting the students, connecting with the students, so that the students feel safe to go to them. So we're very excited that they're a part of all of that now. The other thing that we've seen is both that area as well as my unit maintained resource listings for students, and very in-depth, and we provide these out to students and to faculty and staff at the start of every semester. The CEAP area focuses on the mental health resources, and my area does everything from tax support to, you name it, food banks and food pantries. Being able to combine these resources, I mean, our resource manual, you would be shocked when you see it now, and the kind of support that we can provide to students, not just here on campus and who we can direct them to, but our knowledge and awareness of community resources is pretty amazing. CEAP also, I was talking to them about the number of faculty and staff that are coming to us and saying they have issues in the classroom and they don't know how to support the student, or a student might write something in a paper about a mental health issue or a concern, and the faculty oftentimes are like, I don't know how to respond to that student. I don't know what I need to be doing. And so I was talking to that staff, and they're like, we need to help prepare our faculty and staff better. So they're now doing a newsletter, and this is the link to their very first newsletter. And so they're going to put it out quarterly, and it's really a support to faculty and staff. It trains our faculty and staff on various issues, student issues that might be coming up, issues that they're dealing with that we want faculty to be aware of, but it also will give our faculty helpful hints how to handle various things. So I'm very excited that they've started that. And again, the first one came out in June if you want to check it out. And they've always been doing residence hall support groups, and they'll continue doing that. This is just a listing of all the programming that they do. Because of COVID, they pretty much stopped a lot of the programming that they had to do. And I think they picked some of it back up last year, and this is a full hosting of everything that they're going to do this year. And I do apologize, I listed the dates wrong in the second half of that slide. It should be 2024. You can see we have a whole list of things already planned for the students. It's very important that we program around these things so that students think if they're experiencing something like this, they can talk about it. They can go to somebody, it's safe to talk about, and that's why we provide all of these things and why we're getting back out there and really making this a push. You're very small, don't worry about it, but I just wanted to show you kind of get a sense of what their caseload is. This is not unduplicated numbers, this is duplicated. But this just kind of shows the kinds of things that they do, from depression to threat assessment and to assistance with faculty and staff. Right now, they've handled 632 situations that we anticipate in having conversations with that area that we will probably meet the numbers that we did last year as well. Part of that is because they're getting out there doing so much more, and we know that there's the need. The final thing that I want to talk to you guys about, and I've mentioned is, first is the institution made a conscious decision this past year we've always had a behavioral intervention team, and this is a multidisciplinary team that meets when we have a student crisis, when we have a student threat assessment. This team gathers and to assess that threat. This past year we changed it. It's no longer a threat assessment, it's the CARES team. It's an assessment, response, and evaluation and support team, and we deal with threatening behaviors, but also concerning and disruptive behaviors. And not only do we, as a team, look at how to help and support the student that's going through that issue. Sometimes it's holding them accountable, but sometimes it's providing them with resources and getting them connected with Dr. Mahone Lewis and her team. But it's also providing the support to faculty and staff and helping them manage this issue that's in their classroom and to do it effectively and with care and being direct and all of these things that can be challenging. The team is managed by risk management, but several people are on that team. The counselor is a part of that team. I'm on that team, our conduct officer, the police. But again, it's a multidisciplinary approach to deal with student issues. But we're really taking a CARES approach to working with students. And the last thing I've already mentioned this to you guys is we participated in the Community College Survey of Student Engagement. This is a national survey where we get data from our students about what they're experiencing, what is going on. And a big part of that survey is them telling us about their mental health, the status of their mental health, what concerns they have, how we can help them. And we get those results in July. And I know my area and CEEP is very excited to get this because this is going to tell us how to tailor interventions and also for us to be able to tailor programming going forward. So we'll be able to tell you more about what our students are reporting, both here at CTC, but in comparison to state norms and national norms, which will help us, like I said, as we plan to better support our students. That's a little bit about what we're doing from a mental health
That's a lot of bit about what you're doing.
Yeah, we're doing a lot. Or that area is doing a lot. But are there questions?
Anybody have a question for Ms. Starkey? Thank you for that report.
Thank you, Dean Starkey.
Ms. Rudolph. Marketing.
Good afternoon. As colleges and universities across the country continue to adapt to a changing higher education landscape, marketing will remain a vital piece of our operations. CTC's current marketing agency's contract will end on August 31st, 2023. So in accordance with Texas state purchasing laws and CTC's procurement policies, RFP 23012 was conducted in May 2023. CTC received 7 proposals for the RFP, 5 of which were from qualified bidders. The top 3 scoring qualified bidders were asked to present to a 6-person review committee that included CTC staff and faculty. The committee scored the presentations on a rubric, and the top 2 organizations were invited to present a second time to the deputy chancellors and to myself. The thorough selection process concluded in June 2023, and we would like to recommend that Vision Point Marketing be selected to provide services to CTC pending your approval. Those services to be performed by Vision Point include branding, advertising creation, media placement and buying, and also publication design and other design services as needed. The contract with Vision Point will call for a base period with 5 option periods. And this is a service contract, and the dollar value is based on the budget allocated each year and the needs of the college. So again, we recommend awarding a contract to Vision Point Marketing for the fiscal year beginning September 1st, 2023 through August 31st, 2024 for a 1-year period with 5 1-year option periods.
That will be on the board meeting next week.
Yes, sir.
Any
Yes, sir.
questions?
Question.
Where's
Another question about the cost here. I understand the budget. What is your budget for 2023, 2024 to allocate for this?
I don't have that number yet.
Why not?
They have not been presented to me yet, but I can tell you that for this budget year, the board approved $790,000
Past year.
for this current
It
fiscal year.
ends.
Current year.
Yeah.
Current year.
But
Yes, sir.
we're going forward with,
I've requested a similar amount,
how much did you request?
790,000.
That's what I needed to know.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate that being in the document. Now, number two, services. I understand all the services you got listed. Branding bothers me. Are you considering doing something different than what we're doing right now with our branding?
I wouldn't say I would say we're open with this being a new company. We're open to bringing them in and working and partnering with them and seeing what their thoughts and recommendations are. This company we're really excited about because they work exclusively with higher ed clients. 19 of their clients on their current partner list are community colleges. And then they have several other institutions in Texas that they work with. So I'm really excited to use them as a strategic thought partner in what we should be doing moving forward.
You've talked around my question. My question is, do you want to consider changing our branding, yes or no?
I would be open to that.
Wow.
I would say as we're looking to move forward in this difficult enrollment landscape, that we would consider any option and we would listen to them. They're not making decisions, we're making decisions, but I think having them come alongside us as a thought partner and listening to their recommendations as experts in the field.
Mr. Chairman, that kind of bothers me because we sunk a lot of money in this college with the branding we've got right now with our logo. And I hate to see us try to.
I don't think we're
Undo that,
looking at changing
you know.
the logo.
But that is branding.
Correct.
Yeah.
So are you looking at like going to pop-up events and having like booths for, yeah, hey, this is CTC, consider coming here, like in Coppers Cove or Economic Development Council, they have quarterly pop-ups. And they're like $25 or free for 4 hours. And people go out there and see, mill around and stuff, and might spark someone's interest. We have a good trade center here, and we got regular good education systems. But if at low cost branding, I understand branding too because I own my own business, and it takes a minimum 7 times to see something to develop the muscle memory in your head about what that product is and stuff. And it's a continuous thing. You got to keep it up. And you're talking about web and TV, vehicles, everything that you got to have that peripherals to give out and stuff, events, local, like I was saying, pop-ups and like Central Texas State Fair. I don't know if they got anything left there, but I mean, in the semester's already started at that point, but you may be getting some prepared for the next semester or the mid-semester. It's a continuous fight.
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I spend hundreds of dollars every month on branding and advertising, and I understand the fight, and you just got to be ready for it. $790,000 is what you're planning on. That's a lot of money.
I agree. And, I started in late April. And so I'm still in the process of seeing and observing, learning what we do. But I would say everything's on the table and I'm very fiscally responsible. And so I want to make sure that our dollars are going as far as possible. So making sure if there's any space where we could tighten up our spending and get better results, I'm all for that, for sure.
And better results are more students in the college.
Yes. That's the ultimate goal, is the recruitment effort and to make sure we're bringing in students, the right students.
Well,
Anyone else?
you said this firm had represented many other colleges before. Can we look and see some of their things, or give me if you could
Yes,
just
and
give us a list
I
of-
think I'm allowed to share with you the proposal they sent has some of their previous work.
Yeah, exactly.
Some of this, I wrote down a couple of the Texas schools that they've worked with: UT Dallas, A&M Corpus Christi, UT Arlington, Texas Tech Health Science Center and Edwards University right down the road. Are a few of just the Texas places, but
Any
they've
community colleges from Texas? 'Cause those are all four-year universities.
those are all 4-year. They had 19 community colleges on their list. I didn't see any that were specifically Texas, but there were several that do a lot of the online space. And we were really impressed with them on a couple of things. Their data-driven approach to making sure that every dollar spent has a return on investment. And then also their experience in the entire enrollment management process from start to finish, from lead generation all the way to the retention side of things. They understand the enrollment funnel and the process of bringing students in. And so I think the majority of the committee felt very strongly that they would have the data and the tools that, even though right now we may not be utilizing them across that entire enrollment funnel, but they'll have the tools and the experience to possibly help us further down the road.
Anyone else? Questions, comments?
Just a comment, you said that there were no Texas community colleges. And that's not a bad thing, because what happens with some of these marketing companies, there's too much overlap. So it's okay if they tell us what is happening in Kentucky or wherever, they can share it here. And we don't have to look down the road and see that Temple has the same colors, the same logo, the same things that we have. So you answered the questions that I had, and that was what attracted you to this particular company, and where were they located?
Yes. And also I asked them specifically, one of my questions was, if you're working exclusively with these higher ed clients, how do you juggle us versus your other clients? And they had a really great answer about how they don't really have a cookie cutter approach. They're going to come in and customize to what our needs are. And they are based in North Carolina, but they have staff that work remotely across the country, and several are in Texas.
Ms. Rudolph, you've stirred the pot today well. Got interest from this.
You are so welcome.
When we approve this next week,
Yes,
we
sir.
would expect you to keep us posted. And I'm assuming, let me ask the question, I'm assuming that when it comes time to spend money with them, that will come as a recommendation.
Yes, I think through the budget
Yeah.
process.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
I don't see Dr. De Leon, but I see a spokesperson on his behalf.
Good afternoon.
That's
Good
fine.
On
afternoon.
this exciting hot day, we're like
Yeah.
30 days straight. Okay, so I'm excited to bring this to you all, this wonderful opportunity we have. Thank you for taking the time to let me share this exciting information regarding the approval purchase of the plumbing and electrical learning system. My name is Dr. Carolyn Grego, and I am the Associate Dean of Continuing Ed, Adult Ed, and Surface Area. Continuing Education was awarded the Texas Reskilling and Upskilling Through Education grant of $520,000. The grant supports plumbing and electric instruction in the rural service area. To expand our services in the rural area by providing these courses, we request to purchase plumbing and electrical learning system with Tech Lab, leveraging the purchasing from the co-op choice partner, which CTC is a member of. These systems are part of a mobile training unit that offers students virtual and hands-on learning experience in plumbing and electrical courses. The combination of the virtual and hands-on training models allows quick, timely, and effective response to training needs for high growth, high demand, and emerging occupation critical to the state and local economies. The two items totaling $164,568 request are for plumbing and electrical learning system, which are installed in 2 mobile trailers. Thank you again for this wonderful opportunity that we could provide CTC.
$520,000 grant.
Yes.
Any questions, comments?
Yeah, just because I'm pretty dumb, what does TRUE really stand for?
TRUE? the Texas Reskilling and Upskilling through Education.
Okay,
That's a true grant.
That's a Texas-funded thing,
Yes.
not federal government.
Right.
Okay, that's, that, I just needed to know that. Okay. Second question is, I understand about trailers and the education part. Okay, what pulls the trailer?
We would like to have 2 mobile trailing units. So they're classes on wheels to go to our service areas to provide these courses in plumbing and electric.
I understand,
So-
but what pulls the trailer?
What pulls the trailer? Well, that was not on my list, but I can share. We are in the process of purchasing a new F-250 truck from Caldwell Ford
Okay.
to pull both of these trailers. So not only do we get 2 wonderful mobile classrooms, we will also get a truck that we can use.
Okay, and the truck is not included in the 164,000.
No,
Okay.
No.
That
But
was
it's
my next
including the
question. How much
500
is the truck gonna cost us?
well, we are in, it won't be more than 75,000.
More than what?
It won't be more than 75,000. It's under-
F-250?
Yeah.
Diesel.
So we're working with Caldwell Ford.
You gonna get wheels with it?
It's a red truck. So they will know CTC is coming in every service area. And we're hoping to put our
Yeah,
label.
Mr. Gonzalez is about, come on
I
up here,
know.
sir. Doctor, tell us about,
Question on the, probably the how.
Yeah.
On the 50K list, we have one of the 4 dealerships. And right now, we're making sure that we negotiate a price that is going to be commensurate with what we have on the 50K. So each year, I'll be coming in August with 50K list that has mostly, the majority are all contracts that you've already approved, but we have this list that we leverage sometimes, so it allows us to work expeditiously. So they're looking to leverage the 50K list potentially. The initial bid that we got on the truck, because we did a 3 quote, was actually below, but that, it was actually below 50,000. It was like 40 and change. It was an F-150. Realizing the size of the trailers that we use, plus the tech stop program that falls under them, it was identified by facilities that we really should have an F-250 to pull. So that is the how we are doing that. So we're not just going to run out, go buy a truck, and we are going to negotiate best price.
okay, do we
Yes.
need 1 or 2 trucks? That's
Just
my
one.
next question.
Just one, sir. Just
Okay,
one,
I got
sir.
2 trailers and 1 truck.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
I'm gonna have a class in Barnett one day and a class in San Saba the next day.
Well, part of the issue with that, and I'm not going to get into the operations, I'll allow you, but is going to be staffing. I'm not aware that we have the staffing to be able to run 2 simultaneously. That said, I think that's something that
Yeah.
they're going to look to work towards. So I'll leave
It's
that.
possible that we will need 2 trucks eventually.
Yes, they're down the road. but-
He's trying to sell his truck at least.
I know.
Now, I don't
We're
have a
hoping-
250.
No, you don't.
We're
Thank you very
hoping that
much.
when we're scheduling our courses in our service areas, that we will have a schedule so that each service area will have the opportunity to offer these courses.
When you say service area, which areas?
Marble
Marble
Falls,
Falls.
Lampasas, Burnett, Llano,
San
Good.
Saba,
Fredericksburg.
Brady.
The number of
Mason.
students in those areas. We're
With
looking at.
plumbing and electric, we get a lot of students that wanting to do plumbing and electric.
So it's going to be an increase.
Let
this
me,
Yes.
let me jump
And the
in.
more we market it to those areas, and the more we market it to some of the corporate programs or the corporate businesses in those areas to help with their employees, we're gonna get a lot of buy-in.
The reason, let me jump in here. The reason they're looking at the trailer versus having classrooms set up out there, we don't have the dollars, and those communities don't have the dollars to build a classroom for electrical or for plumbing or even for welding. And so we're looking at building these trailers where they can take it out. They could serve anywhere from 3, 4, 5, 6 students, maybe 8 at the max at one time at a location, and then come back in. So that's the reason for the smaller unit and how it will be utilized. Those communities, well, the largest community we have, I guess, is Copper's Cove. Fredericksburg is really only about 8,000 individuals that live there. They probably have 30,000 tourists every day that are down there, but the rest of those are individuals that live there. Lampasas is a pretty good size, but they have facilities. Lampasas, they have a welding shop, a electrical shop, and so on. So we don't need them in every place. It's these small communities have the small independent school districts, and we serve about 32 of those. I think It used to be 42. I think it's reduced because we don't go east anymore. When I was doing it, we went east. But that's down to 30 or 20 or 30, 28 to 30, something like that. Small districts, Evant, Hyco, places like that. Gatesville has all these shops. They don't need this trailer to go there. So
And before I forget, so keyword is cross-pollinate. So we were just talking about branding and advertising, and you're talking about getting a red truck. Why couldn't it be a white truck with the CTC logo on that thing so everybody will see it?
Well, due to the timing issue, I have to spend this money by August 31st.
White vehicles are easy to come by.
They are not. And I have to stick with our partner.
and they can be wrapped. We wrap those
So
trucks.
that was the
That's not a
reason why.
problem.
If I would go to another dealership, then we would have to go do the bids and all through the process. And we need to have a turnaround right away so I can get this money spent, because I do not want to give it back.
And the graphics and printing department is able to wrap vehicles.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think we'll be able to wrap it with whatever we want to say on it.
Okay.
Have it be a mobile app.
Well, that's the purpose of the branding. Everything you do is geared toward bringing students to this college.
Yes.
And that's what our foremost priority should be.
Yes.
Not to lose students, because we do that every year, because they go to other places, but you need to bring new ones in.
Yes.
And that's what she is geared toward, and what everyone out here should be helping her out with. So we don't have to have those huge budgets to bring people in, because the more everyone's doing their job of helping her, the lower our budget can get to a minimum, and bring more students in. That's most important.
And the wonderful thing about these trailers, they're going to be so top of the notch technology. So we can take them to marketing events and let people see what we're offering here at CTC. And brand that and say, hey, we're offering some mobile classrooms, and we're offering plumbing and electricity in a whole new different way.
And the nice thing is that we start with non-credit, continuing education. We take the trailer out to the service district. We teach an introduction class, and then those students can articulate into the credit programs. So we get them in the service district for non-credit, and then hopefully bring them to college to continue their education at a degree program.
You have a plan. Yeah.
Yes, we've been working collaboratively for this one.
Anyone else? Any other questions?
What
Thank
about
you.
carpentry?
No.
Are you going to work in getting that going?
Well, not just for plumbing and
Yeah,
for
let's-
electricity. The nice thing about the trailers is we can put any equipment in them that we want. So we can put welding in as well. The nice thing is all of the equipment that we're looking at is roll on, roll off. So we can roll it into the trailer, take the trailer out, we can store it there. Some of the training that we've been requested is to store it there. And then we could take the next trailer to another location, store it there, and then move it back and forth.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Mr. Liberty.
All right, I have some info to share in regards to the proposed budget. As you know, the bewitching hour is coming very soon. So I'm going to share some standard information of our main items, our revenue expenditure items that are the majority of this budget. The biggest piece that we talk about every year when the budget comes along are our appropriations. And this year is the first time, Jim, it goes all the way back as long as I've been here. I'm not sure if it goes all the way back to as long as you've been here, where they're talking about making a change in how they appropriate community colleges, which is moving away from contact hour funding.
Right.
As long as I've been here, it's been contact hour funding. I think the early 70s is when they started contact hour funding. They're making a change, and this is straight off of the CoBoard's website. So I'm going to read this to you, if you'll bear with me. The new Texas Community College finance system rewards colleges for their progress towards our state's higher education goals, while also ensuring colleges have access to the resources needed to support their mission to educate and train the workforce of the future. So, as you know, we're governed by the coordinating board, but at the same time, we're governed by our board. So every community college has certain things they have to follow, but then certain things that they do different. The coordinating board, though, has determined, this is Bob talking now, that they know what really needs to be done to educate community college students to meet the mission that the coordinating board has determined is the mission for education in the state of Texas. So that's where this funding model comes from. The only problem with it, as of right this moment, they really aren't 100% sure what it's going to be because they haven't voted on it yet, and they're going to vote on it the same day that I'm going to present the final budget to you, which is August the 22nd. That doesn't concern me greatly for this year because they've given us preliminary numbers. They're not final numbers. And I know those of you that follow it say, well, hang on a second, the governor signed House Bill 1. Well, he did. But that includes the total dollars. It doesn't necessarily include the amount that is going to come to each individual community college. The coordinating board makes that decision based upon the formula that they put together. From everything I've read and from what they're telling us, since this is last minute really to community colleges, we've known forever pretty much what our funding was going to be based upon contact hours. We've had a pretty good idea to know either our contact hours are up, they're down. If community colleges are up 3% and we're up, we're going to see more. If we're down, et cetera. We've always been able to kind of play with those numbers. Well, they're developing a new model that has to do with a lot of things that aren't contact hour funding anymore. And because they really didn't give all the community colleges the opportunity to plan for that in advance, for lack of better words, they're going to hold everybody harmless this first year of the biennium. So the numbers that I actually got this weekend, which is when they finally came out from the coordinating board that says, here's the final draft version that we're going to vote on, we're actually going to see an increase of $1.4 million in the first year of the biennium. That's wonderful. That's the first time state appropriations have gone up in probably the last 4 or 5 bienniums. So at least that's a positive. The only problem is normally we know what year 1 and year 2 of the biennium are going to be at the same time. We don't know what year 2 is going to be. And it'll be very interesting to find out what they approve on the 22nd, because that'll probably come closer to giving us an idea of what we can expect the following year. In addition to that, Dr. Carter will be at a meeting towards the end of this week where the co-board is going to present the TAC leadership more information. So she'll probably come back with a little more knowledge. Except I'm always, until, just like you guys, until someone votes, yes, things can change. But I feel pretty confident that the number that we have been told, which is 15.9 million, a $1.4 million increase over the current year, it's not going to stray far enough to where if they vote a different number after we approve the budget, hopefully on the 22nd, to where it'll be significant to anything that will have to make any major changes whatsoever in the upcoming budget. This is the latest we've ever had to deal with this. Normally once the governor signs it, we know what it is. There's a number, off we go. Well, this once again with they have a new model, and of course it's kind of like any of you who've been in the car business. I was a long time ago. You don't have your friends and relatives buy that first year model. Let's get the bugs kicked out the first year of that new model. Let's wait until maybe the second or third year. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of ins and outs along those lines, but the whole thing is geared towards funding community colleges so the mission and goals that the coordinating board has established for the educational needs of Texans are met. And they, in their mind, they have determined that contact hour funding, which was based upon students sitting in classes, is not necessarily the key. There's 9 different ways you can look at that. I have a little bit of angst about that because, as you know, we have, even though many less than we used to, we still have a great deal of military students that take our Texas classes. Not all of them are concerned with getting 15 semester credit hours in the first year and graduating within 2 years, and and their limitations on their status as soldiers may prevent them from doing such. But a lot of those things are going to come into play on how this funding model works. So I wish I had a better answer for you. It's rare that I come up in front of you guys and say,
Well, I don't really know, but I know for sure we're going to be real close to 15.9 million this year. Where it's going to be after that, I don't have a clue. So hopefully we get better information. And they also, even though they're approving it on the 22nd, they announced that they were going to approve the new formula for the 25 biennium in January. So January of 24 is when we should at least have final information telling us how they're going to fund us for the second year of the biennium, which will start September of next year.
Bob, they're going to continue, my understanding, the commissioner asked that they continue to fund us every year, year by year, not by 2-year period, so that we have adjustments that we can make. We can go up or down in that year, and we could get funded accordingly. We don't have to wait 2 years. I do know that the TAC leadership emphasized, I voted, that we be held harmless. So I think that's where it's going. So we'll know Thursday.
Right. At least in the very first year, there's no doubt we're going to be held harmless. Plus, where it comes from there, the second year will be interesting. Plus, as it stands right now, just so you all understand, there's X amount that's in House Bill 1 for community colleges.
Hey,
the only way that we can have our numbers go up basically is to outperform our brethren. That's kind of how it works, because the pot is so big. So if all of our key numbers go up a greater percentage than other community colleges' key numbers, we can possibly see this 15.9 million go up the second year of the budget.
Good.
So we have the opportunity to outperform others. And there's, they did the same thing with contact hour funding. Even though they budgeted you for both years, they also reran numbers partway through that first year. And if you started outperforming the other community colleges, you would get an adjustment in your appropriations the second year. That was an increase over what they initially had provided.
And every community college knows that.
Every community college knows that, sir. And we those of us that have worked here at the college for a long time, and those that were here before us, were real adept at reading the statutes. And we used to create our schedule to behoove us the best based upon those numbers coming in at the right time for our numbers to go up. So once we know what the rules to the game are, we'll figure out the right way to play.
Now, there's a huge paradigm shift in that. And I know that Dean Fisher and Dean Bach both have been working diligently to get all of our programs and our courses and the things we offer in line with that funding model, so that next year when it hits, we capitalize on each of these touch points to get the dollars. Otherwise,
there are key career fields that they have determined are more critical. I think that's the term, is critical field.
Critical fields.
And of course, we have to start developing more students and graduates in those critical fields to reap the greater dollars. That's part of the games that you have to play.
Is the staff aware that the ball game is changing, the requirements are changing, and so they can identify their contribution to its success?
I think the leadership in those areas are.
Okay.
And then of course, obviously, once final information is put in place, they'll be able to distribute that leadership down through their chain so everybody understands what's being done and why it's being done.
Because it's nothing worse than being held accountable for something that you don't even know you're accountable for.
Which is why they're holding us harmless this first year, because they're going to fund us. I mean, we're talking September 1, they're going to start funding us in a way that we didn't know we still don't know today how it's going to be done. So yes, ma'am, it's as I said, once we know the rules, we've got smart enough people here that we can figure out how to best make those rules work for us.
Right.
A budget related question, and that's on the governor signing the bill to increase the property tax exemptions for homestead. You've got any information on that yet from Bell County?
We have received nothing from Bell County, but the last I read, and it's funny, I kind of keep track of it in the periphery until it's final, because you can get yourself wrapped around the axle so many times while they're discussing what they're going to do. But the last I saw, that large exemption increase was for school districts, which should not affect Central Texas College's tax amount. It's for the ISDs.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it affects the appraisal.
But
That's-
the cap, sir, will be only on that ISD portion. So if you've got a $300,000 house and there'll be $100,000 exemption for the ISDs, and then the current $25,000 exemption for all other entities.
Okay.
So it will, so if you, when you have your statement comes in, as you've all seen them, it'll show your appraised value, and then it'll show your taxable amount and all the different entities you pay tax to. Those numbers are going to have different amounts to them because, first of all, not all of them recognize the same exemptions as the others do. And the ISDs will have a much larger amount that they have to put in as a homestead amount than the rest of the taxing entities. So you'll have various numbers in there. That number shouldn't affect, at the present time, the last I saw, what happens to the other entities, to include Central Texas College.
Good clarity. Thank you, Bob.
I hope so.
Anybody else?
It's
Question?
about as clear as mud.
Okay.
So,
You managed to get it clear.
and that's my next item to talk about is tax. As of right now, we still haven't received numbers from county, which basically what we'll receive from Bell County is the calculation, which is about 20 pages long, of how they come up with what the no new revenue rate is and the voter approved rate. And we'll have those and look through them, make sure the numbers are right, tell them, yeah, these are good, and then we'll vote on them.
All that Cordell County yet?
Well, when we get the number from Bell, it includes Coriel's, because Coriel doesn't do that piece by themselves. We put it together and we have a combined tax rate. When you look at what Bell County provided me about a month and a half or 2 months ago, it was the initial new appraised value, which that's before people start to fight their appraisals, but it's normally still a very good indicator of where the numbers go. Last year, that number was almost 18%. This year, it's 16.9% increase still. So based upon what happened to us a year ago, which was our effective rate went from 11.16 to 9.6. Sorry, I keep saying effective rate. I'm an old dog. You got to remember it was effective rate for 33 years, and now it's the no new revenue rate. But the no new revenue rate went from 11.16 to 9.6. My guess is, based upon where these numbers are now, I can anticipate seeing the no new revenue rate dropping to 8.5%, 8.5 cents or less is my guess. It would not surprise me whatsoever. Now, what that'll do for us, as a reminder, the no new revenue rate means every piece of property that was on the tax roll last year, and then that rate, all those pieces of property this year, based upon their new values, will raise the same amount of taxes on the same amount of properties that were on the rolls from this year to last year. What that doesn't take into case, obviously, are all the properties that have been added that weren't on the rolls last year that are on the rolls now. And any of us who live in this area, you can't throw a stick without there being some new building going on. So even though our effective rate will go down, we're going no new revenue rate. And if that's what we choose to adopt, which I'm going to recommend that's what we choose to adopt, it's still going to bring us in more tax revenue than it will this last year because of the fact there are more properties on the rolls. There are going to be people, obviously, if you own a piece of property and it's not homesteaded, your taxes, even though we lower the rate, if that piece of property has increased higher than the average, you may see a higher tax bill from Central Texas College. But the average, the overall amount, should remain the same. The main reason I'm recommending us going with the no new revenue rate, as we all know, probably the biggest thing in the legislature this year that they've talked about has been what's going on with taxes. You can't watch a news channel from anywhere in Austin. You can't pick up a paper. You can't see anything where that's what they're talking about. And I've always liked to remain under the radar. So if we can remain under the radar without being one of those that jump out there and say, gee, we're going to increase your taxes because we don't know what they're going to do in the upcoming years with exemptions and appraisals. I think us holding the line is the best thing to do for our constituents. I think that there are going to be many that are going to have pretty undue burdens because of the way property values are just continuing to skyrocket. So a lot of folks, I think we're going to see, anybody who has property that's not homesteaded are probably going to see, in most cases, their taxes go up. Because even this change that you're talking about, sir, it's too late to happen this year. It'll roll into next year, so they're gonna get hammered in the current year before that comes into play. So once again, I don't know what that number is. My guess is there's no doubt in my mind we're going to go down. I think it's probably going to be close to 8.5 cents, but once again, that'll probably still generate us $250,000 more of tax revenue in the current fiscal year than it did the previous fiscal year because of all the new property that's been added to the rolls.
No, we still got the urban myth out there that CTC was created
Yeah.
to be taxed only for 5 years, and then we've been getting more taxes. I mean, that story still is out there. And so a lot of people have picked up on that this time around, and a lot of chit chat about, well, why are we paying CTC taxes when we shouldn't?
Right.
And
And that was the original promise, but legislature changes every 2 years.
You know, and it's funny. I've read so much lately because I pay attention to every blog under the sun related to taxes just because I know people. It's the hot button. I mean, I'm the same way. Listen, I don't like paying taxes any more than anyone else, but you know, the argument that we all have to remember is when people say, "Well, I don't have kids that go to Central Texas College." Well, I'm sure you don't, but I'll almost bet you if you've been to a hospital around here, your nurse probably went to Central Texas College. The guy that fixes your air conditioner when it's 110 degrees outside probably went to Central Texas College. The folks that's doing the plumbing at your house probably went, you know, so you have to remember that we educate all those people that provide those services. And aren't we glad that we have them? So that's the argument I use with my friends that love to give me the business.
It is a
about
community college.
It's a community college, sir. Absolutely.
Anybody else? Any questions, comments?
Yes, sir.
Out of the percentage of income that we get yearly, how much of it is in currency?
You know, it's getting smaller and smaller, sir, where we're talking real folding money, as I like to describe it. You know, we don't. I'm one of the only weirdos anymore that carries cash. Nobody carries. Well, you're an old guy, though, Jim, you know.
Except for us all guys.
There you go. I mean, you know, it's rare. It's rare, and you know, as you know, there are many places already that you go. Even though we were talking about today the Blue Bottle Cafe that only takes cash, there are more places that you go to now that only take plastic.
Right.
So, you know, over the years, I've noticed it because what we have to pay to the credit card processor has gone up over the years because so many more people pay that method. So actual cash dollars, our percentage is extremely minimal. It's going to be less than probably 5%.
Did they repeal the legal tender law or something, or what?
They haven't yet. It's still being talked about. I don't see that happening as quick as people think it may happen because they say it's possible. Because once again, we talked about cash, and we don't need to do a poll here, but I bet you there's at least $1,000 cash in this room, and you would think at some point somebody, if it was going to be no good tomorrow, we'd all been hurrying out to figure out how to get it out of our pocket so it's not worth just the paper that it's printed on the day we have it. So whenever they get to that point and it starts getting closer, we're all going to know, because that's going to be, as I shared with some today, if I never have to go in a bank again, I'd be thrilled. But if some point, if they get rid of cash and you're going to have to go into the bank and cart your little wheelbarrows, I'm looking at you when I say that, sir. I know where you've got it buried, probably out there. You're going to have to bring it in. When they start talking about that is when I'm going to be much more concerned about it. Yes, they're trying to push everything, as you know, that direction. You know, from those of us that have been here a long time, for years, VA checks. Everybody used to get a VA check, which, you know, first it was cash, then it was VA checks. Well, when's the last time the federal government's written a check for stuff like that? Everything's already digital currency. But there are too many places that still have too much real cash on hand that's going to be one of those things that when they declare it, they're probably going to give it a decade at the least for people to, it's kind of like, I'll look at you, sir. You may remember when they outlawed everybody owning gold. I'm making a joke there in the 30s. And everybody had to bring all their gold in. And there was X amount of time to make that happen.
He didn't take it.
At some point, they are going to, the only way they're going to be able to do it is to basically make having cash, unless you're a numismatist, a coin collector, you're going to have to bring it in. That's what's going to happen, just like they did when they went off the gold standard.
Treat it like script overseas. Right.
Anybody else?
Yeah, just piling on top of that.
Come on.
Vietnam, we were paid for military payment certificates
Yeah.
and MPCs. And they had conversion dates about every 4 or 6 months, which means you had to take your MPC and turn it in for the new issue. And it was
If you had too much, you were
oh
in trouble.
man, if you had too much, you
work in the black
lost
market.
it. I mean, basically,
Yeah.
they knew how much money you drew every month. And if you
Why'd
tried
you
to
have
convert
extra?
more than that,
The problem.
Everybody's got their story. I
Yeah.
was in San Marcos recently with my
terrible.
granddaughter in college there and took her and her boyfriend to lunch to a place that had big signs. We are a cashless institution. And so I said something to my granddaughter about that. I said, is that a problem? She said, not for me. She said, the only cash I ever get is when you give me some.
And Jim can tell you, and I can tell you on one of my early trips to Korea, there was a time that the only way we were allowed to pay our local nationals were in Korean won,
Right.
cash money, folded money. Well, first of all, you have to remember that the won conversion rate was about 1,800 won to $1. And I was over there for a payroll process, and we had 70 employees, and we had a van, sir, that
Stacked up.
was stuffed from bottom to top, front to back in dollar bill, and we were paying
Yeah.
like this. And you never saw an auditor so scared in your entire life. I was petrified. So when they went to where we could finally start paying them electronically, it was one of the greatest days of my life.
Korea, you were worried about that?
I am stunned that we never had a van disappear.
Anybody else? Questions, comments? Think about
Okay, sir, I've got a list now. Tuition, those of you will remember, we last year, I believe we did it in October, we passed a 5-year tuition rate increase. So all of our students are aware of it. They know it's coming. It's easier for my staff and for the folks that are doing marketing. They can put it in their information. So that tuition rate goes up by 5% this year. It'll go from 100 to 105 for in district and 124 to 130 for out of district, which was a 5% increase. And then I will also share with you that as of this morning, with 38 days left before the first day of classes, we are 1.8% up in our enrollments compared to last year, which that's the first time in a long time we've been up, guys. I am hoping that we maintain being up. Now, when you get your final numbers that I present to you, you're going to see that tuition, even though I'm telling you we had an increase and we have an increase, that our tuition numbers are down. Well, that's because what we budgeted last year was a little high, number one. And number two, we also don't have the Europe campus any longer. And we've closed about 5 locations in our Continental campus. So our total tuition revenue will be lower than it is in the current year. Texas campus numbers have actually got budgeted up a little bit higher, and we're getting close to, we're actually budgeting a number that is very close to where we were right when the pandemic started. So we're hoping we get back to those numbers. Things are pointing that I feel comfortable going that way.
What color do you think that'll be, Bob? Red or black?
By the time it's done, I'm going to hope, listen, kind of like on the roulette wheel, I'm hoping for green, which is flat. If we're flat, I'll be thrilled.
Yeah.
If we're flat,
Not
I'll
red,
be thrilled.
not red.
Not red. You know,
So just,
unfortunately,
You'll hear
that
all that.
number changes every day. Which I look at it, but once again, kind of talking about what the legislature's doing, I look at it just to see it, but I don't pay it any real consequensive look until about 7 days from the start of classes, because by then that's when it's too late to make anything like that. So we're about 3 weeks away from it getting really important. Those are the major funding sources of our revenue. Expenditures, I've got a few items that I should share with you as expenditures, and of course, they're our biggest pieces. The number one biggest piece of our entire budget, obviously on the expenditure side, is salaries and benefits. That's our biggest resources, our people. If you'll remember, in the current budget that we approved a year ago, we approved a 2.5% pay increase for all eligible full-timers, as well as an 8% retention incentive and a 6% retention incentive for new hires. So all those items are in the current budget. Based upon everything that we know of with where our enrollments have been, we are not proposing any salary increases whatsoever in this current budget. We think the 8.5% to 10.5% that we did last year did a great job in keeping us in line with most of our competitors. And because we really are still, we need to see some positive results in our financial position before we need to look at rolling up those pay rates again. I think we're in a pretty good place where we are right now. All of us in here, even the tightest guy in the room, me, would love to pay everybody more, but as good stewards and to keep ourselves where we need to be with our financial position, I think it's prudent not to do it this year.
It also rolls into the fact that we're coming into our first reaffirmation.
Correct.
And that's one of the things that they look at closely. I'm coming off as a trustee, but I can tell you everything that we did this past year on 300 and some institutions, it was probably 70% of them was fiscal management. They got
They like to see
hard,
they like to see a balanced budget,
right,
which is nice, and they like to see a strong financial position.
Yeah.
Thank goodness, prior to these last 6 or 8 years, we had 20 years of as strong as any community college in the state of Texas. So we do have reserves. So we've been able to get through these years with negative results without having major issues. No, everyone gets paid on time. All our vendors get paid on time. We're still the best game in town. We go get a new vendor, we shoot them our financial statements, and they're like, spend what you want, because they know they're going to get paid. So we're in great financial position. Along those lines, the operating expenditures, the rest of the operating expenditures for the college, all of you know, we talk about it almost every time we have a financial discussion. We have continued to hold the line or decrease expenditures, and we started at the beginning. I mean, the minute the budget was approved, we started tightening down on what we approved, even though we already approved it. We've held the line on filling positions. We don't always fill them immediately. We don't fill them always. Some we don't. We choose not to fill. And we have been judicious in spending college dollars to ensure that they're needed for the mission and they're critical. You know, good friend Woody Shimwell has asked me for 30 some odd years, Bob, did everybody get what they want in their budget? And in the early years, once I came up with the right answer, it was the one I gave him every time, and he never had an issue. I said, sir, no, but they got what they needed. So I think that's where we will be again this year. The one thing that we all have to know, if you've got a critical piece of equipment that you have to run your department, and that piece of equipment breaks, whether it was budgeted or not, we're not going to go, oh, well, I guess we don't run that department anymore. We're going to find the money and we're going to replace it. So, and then the last piece, the major piece of expenditure in this item, and it's items that you are all aware of because they were part of the facilities master plan. We've got about $5.7 million in this budget of capital improvements that are all part of the facilities master plan. I'll quickly run down the list of what those projects are. If you need any more details, I already told Mark you can speak to them. But none of these are new that you haven't already heard of, but these are items that we have in the current budget. And as a reminder, and I have to remind the departmental managers this every time, well, it's in my budget. Well, that's only step one. Getting in your budget is the first step. You still have to get it approved, not spend it. But what we have out there is we have projects out there for the access control project, which is getting in and out of doors, critical situations. The elevator in the enrollment center, relocation of the police department, the repairs to the, we're going to call it the front porch on the library. Some of you that have maybe have been here long enough, that were actually out there before it was a dangerous
Right.
spot. I remember
I've-
having picnics on that front patio years and years ago, but that's it. The renovations and upgrades to the Cape Center, which may be even more critical now in this new funding method, because I'm sure there are going to be some critical fields that we can probably address in that building that will help us with future appropriations.
Right.
Some new science labs and locations of science labs renovations, and some improvements, I think we just talked about them last month, to protective services that we had talked about for the criminal justice area. That amounts to about $5.7 million. The increases, these dollar amounts related to capital improvements, and then the $2.3 million that we need to spend for the ADA requirements to meet all of the DOD items that they presented us. Those are the only items that are coming out of reserve in this budget. Everything else we're able to fund with current year revenues. So with that reserve covering these, when the budget is presented, it will be a balanced budget.
You meant DOJ, not DOJ.
I'm sorry, yeah, DOJ. Pardon me.
Anybody else? Questions, comments? Thanks, Bob. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Bob.
Time for our board members to suggest items for future agendas. Ms. Coley?
I'd like to have an update on aviation, and is the 310 ever going to rise
That's it.
runway?
Gotcha.
I was told this morning at the coffee shop that aviation people didn't get their information on the agenda for today like they intended to. It was their shortfall. So they're ready to give us a report.
We weren't ready for that.
Yeah.
Pass.
No,
Just remind us, I won't be here in the last meeting in August.
Next regular meeting will be the board meeting next week on the 25th, regular time, and the workshop in August the 15th. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So
so moved.
Second. All in favor? Vote with your feet.
Okay.